Welcome to Philly Coco Presents Side Project Spotlight, Episode 10. This is a developer's journey to making cool stuff. We are your host. I'm Kotaro.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Aaron.
And we are Philly Coco, a Philly-based Coco Heads community focused on Apple development. That's primarily, but not exclusively, means iOS, Mac, tvOS, and watchOS. Philly Coco's prime objective is to help you elevate your own development journey. And that's the elevator pitch. How did I do this time?
We did it. We got through it.
Print it, ship it. We're done.
That's it. Just record that one. We're just going to clip that and use it every week.
I think the last part could be tweaked, but yeah, we're close. We're close.
We're iterating, and we're close to like a version 1.0 shippable intro. So what are we talking about this week, Othro?
This week we're kind of talking about, I guess where we left off was we kind of like branched off into our own little set of side projects. So in your case, Steve, you were doing a lot of video work with Chrissy. I was participating in a global game jam, and Aaron was continuing real work with AR related stuff, AR prototyping, if you will. So I guess we could start with you, Steve. How's your video class going? I believe that's what you're taking. I guess you can kind of explain that part.
Yeah, the main side project I've been doing for like a month was I took a class on monthly.com, and their whole deal is it's like an online class website that where everything is only a month long. And so I took a Casey Neistat film class. He's a big YouTuber, and so he recorded a bunch of lessons about how he does filmmaking. And so the course was to create 2 movies. So we recorded the first movie, and we actually premiered it on YouTube last week. And we got like several hundred views. That's pretty cool. I mean, it's basically people in town because it's a movie about Jenkintown. Actually, if you search for Jenkintown on YouTube, we were like the 4th entry after some news reports about someone getting beaten in the middle of York Road in a road rage incidents. So we're right below the road rage videos.
It leads, as they say.
I know, exactly. I was like, oh, road rage. Oh, our goofy little movie. And then we finished up our second movie, which I'm going to submit today after this recording is done, which is on a Sunday.
Nice.
And that movie was Chrissy created a dance with a red telephone in the middle of an intersection during a snowstorm. And so we created a little video about that process. That one we had to be more elaborate with our cinematography and stuff. So that was fun. And that's all wrapped up. I have more attention to focus on the programming related side projects, which is what I'm getting back to, and the damn orange ball. Which we'll talk about. Stupid orange ball is like the bane of my existence for days now. But yeah, that's it. So it's good. If you have any questions about how to be a master YouTuber, apparently I'm not it. But I do understand how the Premiere system works now on YouTube. That was fun.
Very cool. Very cool. Are we talking Adobe Premiere or?
Oh no, there's a system on YouTube. You can schedule a video to be a quote unquote premiere, and then you choose
that kind of premiere.
Then it's kind of like a live video. It has a live chat, but it's not actually live. It's pre-recorded. And the best part about it, of course, is you can select one of many intros, like countdown intros. So I picked the sci-fi one with like robots. It's like the beginning of a mecha anime. Mm-hmm. And like counts down to like really hardcore music, and then it just Chrissy in her kitchen talking about Jenkintown and sandwiches. I thought the juxtaposition was funny, so so that's what I do. It's like dry robot eyes, glowing red like robot eyes, and then
I can see Casey shaking his head right now, like, no, Steve, that was the wrong one.
I don't know, maybe. I don't think he actually looks at any of our projects. He's a pretty busy guy.
Got you.
But it's actually really cool because I did learn how to use Final Cut Pro in this process, which is neat. So yeah, making movies is fun. I have no idea how I may or may not merge that into my programming world because I really like to have cross-disciplinary stuff. Mm-hmm. But for now, it was just a nice diversion for a month, and I learned some valuable skills for YouTube, and maybe I can grow our channel from 11 subscribers to, I don't know, the sky's the limit, maybe 20.
Well, that's the one of the only practical uses for AR stuff right now is adding things to videos. So
Exactly. And yeah, you're right. That was actually kind of in the back of my mind, and not really related to this particular class, but I wanted to get better at understanding the mechanics of making videos in the hopes that maybe then we can, part of the things I could do is use it later for some other stuff. One of the ideas we have for a future video, which requires me to learn more AR stuff, is I want to do some AR, videos of I want to take the environment we have, like for instance, there's like murals and stuff around, I want to be able to take one of them and maybe overlay some AR artwork. I know that's been done before, but I don't know how to do it. And I think that could be cool as part of a video, where you have your regular world, and then it just comes alive in some way, and then you film that, through your camera on your phone through your AR app, and then that could be incorporated into whatever kind of video you're doing. I mean, I think that'd be really cool, because our whole thing that Chrissy and I are trying to do is these cross-disciplinary kind of projects, and my part of it is supposed to be more like digital arcana, I think is what we called it. So I'm trying to bring some software development into it.
That is a very interesting idea, where this is much more of a professional type of approach of like saying, you know what, I want to film something, right? Let's say I have an iPad or an iPhone or whatever, and I'm just doing a walkthrough, and then I want to incorporate some visual effects or graphic overlays or something, but I want to at least storyboard that out to start. But having AR to sort of identify, like, okay, here I want this to explode, and here I want this, graphics to come in, and you can use AR as sort of like a starting point. But who knows, even a finished product to sort of like give you like real-time feedback on a scene, right? To create sort of like this sort of like visual experience, taking advantage of the fact that you're using AR to sort of to create your like prototype, of lack of a better word.
Yeah, I think you're on the right track here. Like, I had this idea a while back about dances, but it works great for this. If I think you should be able to use the AR technology to block a scene out, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
block
right. So you should be able to like say, I want this. You can use like a virtual avatar person or something. You can say, I want this person here. You could practice the camera movements. I mean, there's all kinds of ways that this might work. And then you have that recorded. And then I think the best part is you could probably do it so that you could like recognize the scene, so you can kind of get your camera back in position. But you could like literally mark the ground too. But I mean, the one of the things we encountered was how do you quickly block up a scene? In our case, because the style of filmmaking we're doing was we're just out there. Like the first movie, we're just out there with an iPhone, so this would be the perfect kind of place to do this AR app stuff, because we're just using our iPhone.
Right.
And we're out there, like, we have to do this quickly. Like, we had to do it chronologically. We had a short time period to do it. And so trying to figure out when we get to a location, like, how am I going to do the scene real quick? That would have been nice. Or if we had some prep time, maybe we could have gone in advance and use this AR as kind of taking notes about how to get the scene prepped.
Yeah.
For, a live thing. Because especially when you're filming, like, actual streets and, like, in front of stuff, and there's traffic and there's weather, and you don't have a lot of time to wait.
Right.
You don't have a lot of time to like mess around with things. Oh, Aaron sent us a link to recording and replaying AR session data. So there is an ability to do this. So that's great. I'm telling you, I don't. There's got to be apps that people have built that do this kind of thing.
I know there are sports related apps, right, that kind of showcase like, okay, like here's your shooting form and here's what your shooting form probably should be, or something of that nature. Record that session and then see like where your form is off. I'm aware of something like they would showcase that in one of those Apple events. So, or like if your arc, how funky your arc is when you're shooting a ball when you're playing basketball or something.
Yeah, I've seen that one a lot, and I remember the AR game, like the AR demo they did, where you were watching like a movie or something from different angles. It was like on a tabletop. I think I remember this, and it was like these, characters doing things, and you could kind of like zoom in and look at it from different angles. But I didn't see a lot of examples of like, how can I use this as a real in the field tool? because I think right now, without glasses or something, that's really the most useful thing with AR is using it as a tool in the field. That's my view of it.
Yeah, it does feel at the moment still very niche.
Very niche, but so is filmmaking. Like really, I mean, I guess maybe not anymore with YouTube, but it's not everybody's out there trying to make movies on there.
I guess niche in a niche, right? So like in the descriptions in the way we're describing it, it's much more like for people in professional fields, particularly in vertical markets.
Or prosumers. I mean, I think there's a market for like the people like me who would never pretend to be a professional filmmaker, but have a desire to continuously improve and maybe have an idea of what we want the end result to be, but don't have the experience and skills to do it yet. So like some sort of software aided crutch could be useful.
I mean, one kind of cheap and dirty approach you could take is if you wanted to film or test an idea out where you're going to have CG characters in there, like where you're setting your timers, right? Of like when you interact with a CG character, maybe somebody comes in right into scene and they're supposed to be the CG character. You can kind of like say, okay, I'm gonna have this AR character rig the 3D model. Actually, you can technically rig a 3D model based on the person's movement and position. So you can create a scene where like a person comes in and there's an overlay of the same 3D model on top of this person, and they are doing the same motions and all that stuff, and you can kind of see how they would actually look as the character in AR, right?
Oh, that's
like
cool.
It would probably be rudimentary, and I don't exactly know for sure how well it would work without some kind of preset of saying, okay, this person needs to be like T-posed up and ready to go. But
can you imagine how cool the home movies that kids can make or people can make nowadays with that kind of technology? You could do those overlays on Instagram and places where you have like the face masks and stuff. That's like very straightforward, I'll say, thing you could do with this technology. And so you can basically create virtual costumes, and it doesn't have to be super slick when you're talking about amateur work.
You can do a VTube TikTok or something of that nature where, I mean, you kind of already do it now, but I think like some kind of easy way to just do it in real time. That's and with not so much expensive equipment. That's the key. Like
I don't know how they do that, like what kind of equipment and software they need for that. But could you get away with doing it maybe with the right software and just an iPhone? Is it sensitive enough, at least for your face?
Yes. In this case, we could probably pull it off with just the face.
And maybe explain what VTube is to people who may have no idea what they're talking about.
I guess like I don't know, it's hard to describe because
I thought it's like virtual avatars.
But basically, yeah. Instead of like, let's say you're doing a Twitch stream and maybe you're just not looking your best that day. It's a way to like say, okay, I have I'm still doing the performance, and I'm still like playing my game, and you're still seeing a virtual version of me, and it's still like copying my facial expressions, in the best way it can, but it's a 2D or 3D representation of me. And so people who, for example, want to keep their anonymity can use that as a way to like create a persona and use that as their way to sort of, I guess, form of self-expression, for lack of a better word, and not have to like worry about, I'm going to get doxxed or whatever.
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, I just know some of those VTubers just got real popular, like the character they created.
Yeah.
Because it lets you do that, unless you create like an anime looking character if you want, and
right.
And that character itself can be the draw. So it's cool, but I don't know how they actually did that. I don't know what their software was they did that with, but
yeah. Well, a lot of it's like some people can get really complex. Like I think Code Miko is like one of the more popular ones where it's a full body rig.
Wow.
Including like a rig for like like a facial rig, like you see in like those behind the scenes for movies for like Avatar and that kind of stuff. It's like,
Wow,
whoa, that's a little much.
that's a
But that's
lot.
the point of where I'm trying to say is like, well, if you can use AR to like take that the iPhone camera and do majority of the work there, it probably already exists, to be honest.
Everything we can think of probably exists, but the AR kit face recognition stuff is sensitive enough that you can get anchor points enough on your face that, I mean,
Sure.
if you're not going to be too expressive, I'm not sure, there's probably a limit to it, but if you're not super, super expressive with it, I mean, yeah, you could totally do a character that is at least following your face.
Yeah, Ray Winderlich has a great video tutorial that we played with before. That is really good example of like covering up your face with a robot head or something. Since we're on the topic of AR, we might as well just transition completely into it since we're already here. I know, Aaron, you've been working on that prototype. Could you kind of like briefly describe what you did and where we went? Because I don't remember exactly where we were on that last time.
Here we go to the orange ball discussion.
Yeah, we were just trying to make a simple prototype of dropping some kind of marker on a real location in the real world. So the orange ball is just something I picked out of the Reality Composer tool. They have just like a bunch of objects that you can take that's all built into Xcode and drop them in your AR scene. So that was I wasn't designed or chosen for any reason other than it's just the first thing that jumped out at me, and that it'll be obvious in the scene when I dropped one in there. So
it's a good choice.
And then I was just messing around with geo anchors to anchor something to a real world location and getting all that working in Swift UI and everything. So it's like that the battle of core location is not a Swift UI library and all that stuff. So but I think we all got it to work finally. Not that we spent that much time on this particular project.
I spent a few days banging my head, just could not get it to work. It just wouldn't work. I just started yelling at my phone. I was at Chrissy's house. Like, she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm trying to get an orange ball to appear. The freaking orange ball will appear." And she thought I was insane. But it worked just before we started recording here. I finally got an orange ball on my desk here, and I was excited.
I think one thing that will be interesting for you to add, Aaron, or one of us to add, is sort of like a little, when you tap into the scene, to be able to see a little boom, like a little like effect to at least acknowledge that your tap was acknowledged in scene, and then like the ball to come dropping down, because you can assign some gravity to it. It's just assigning like the point of which, like, okay, like I load the ball, but I want to load it maybe about like a y-index above the scene height, so maybe like a relatively high height, and then come down to the spot.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff you can do with that. The main thing I was messing around with was getting the object to attach to the.
Like, you did the hard work.
It's just the thing with trying to do location stuff in Swift UI, and it's kind of doesn't work. One of those things not playing too well together, but and I was just kind of messing around with it last weekend and didn't really spend that much time on it.
Still, it's a very little code, surprisingly little code to get this to work at all. And you do a lot of stuff in Reality Composers, that's where you set up the actual orange ball in this case, and you set up the gravity for it. You can set up like a little animation that Cultro did right before it came in. And the actual Swift code is like 4 lines to set up an anchor and the ball. And that's really quite impressive, because this is my first time really trying to look at the actual code besides WWDC videos or something. Actually running some AR code again. And I'm like, wow, you could do a lot. You have to obviously write much more code for more elaborate things, but I think we should just stop and just be amazed for a second. Like, we actually got a 3D orange ball to appear in our environment, and it has reflections and stuff. It looks decently realistic for a cartoon orange ball, and we did that with like 4 lines of code or something, or half a dozen lines of code technically. I mean, that's pretty impressive. I mean, I think the engineers at Apple did a really amazing job with ARKit for what it is.
I mean, just looking at it right now, I mean, a lot of the, in the content view, which is more of the core main view of it all.
Yeah.
Is where a good chunk of the layout code is, and some logic too, which we probably want to like move outside of it. But for the like you said, for the most part, it's relatively like easy to read. It's very easy to read. Literally, like this particular view is like 72, 71 lines of code, and then the next largest line of code we can look at is 41 lines of code. I mean, it's just like, and that's basically the UI view representable, which is notoriously not notoriously, but like if you're gonna have like long bouts of line of code where you set up all your like setting up your views and then having you update your views and maybe have all your delegates there, that would be the space to find all that. Now, one thing that I did notice, Aaron, and I don't know if that's something that's easy to implement, is that it still suffers from the sort of like, okay, like all this is a glorified overlay. I put the ball in front of the camera, but if I move my hands around the look, where the ball is, my hands just goes behind the ball's, behind the ball itself, so it doesn't look like I'm holding.
Yeah, you have to actually do like an occlusion mask setup. It doesn't do that automatically for you. It's like a built-in API to do that, but you have to like implement like a vision task and all this stuff to mask the scene and apply that. So we can work on that. Yeah,
I want us to go there.
Yeah,
because
we can definitely do that. It was just kind of the first thing of I can add a thing to a GPS coordinates.
No, Aaron, I'm so excited that I got the orange ball to appear today. You have no idea. I mean, this is really fun. I'm gonna go and show Chrissy after this, and just to get her blow her mind.
Why don't you make like a dozen of them?
I'm gonna just do that. I'm like, look, your whole kitchen is full of orange bouncing balls.
I was kind of curious about this one line of code, AR scene content .load ball. Is that auto generated?
Yep, that's generated by Reality Composer. Whatever you put in there, it generates that code, and you can load whatever content.
Right. So, like, I originally had one called load. I accidentally forgot to rename. I added like a block and forgot to rename it from its default, which is like load, which is like a scene. So I guess it would say something like load scene.
Yeah, if you like bring up the tips for like load, it'll just like pop up whatever's in your AR Reality Composer project, I think is what it's called. It pops up in your Xcode project when you add like a Reality Composer scene.
When you started the project, like, do you do file new in Xcode to create the AR scene content, or like how do you? Oh, I'm just saying, what's the easiest way so everything's linked up properly?
And I think you can just start with like a augmented reality app template if you want it for the easiest thing.
Oh, there's also a Reality Composer project template type, which is probably also what would get you the right
that's if you want to add something to your
And then inside one of these projects, you have what's called scenes. So, Culture, this is much more like video game terminology. Can you explain maybe what how the Reality Composer kind of environment is set up? Like, what are scenes, and then the things in the scenes, and
so I assume it's like a wrapper for something in where because you create these sort of 3D environments, right? And you set it up with like the 3D objects, their materials, their textures, whatever. And then in this case, they have some parameters in which you can add behaviors to affect their movement, their physics, if they make a sound, what do they do, and then ways to access different components of that scene. So if it's a robot face, maybe like what the name of the jaw would be, or something of that nature, or the eyeballs, or something of that nature. Although I'm not entirely sure, because I'm still getting used to like there's one, like right now we're only doing like one 3D object per scene. But in a real situation, you would have multiple ones.
when would you switch between scenes?
It can be app specific, I would guess. But if a real basic example would be like, instead of my ball, I want a box, or I want a robot, or I want. You can create multiple scenes, and each scene has, and each object in that scene can act differently. So you can make let's say you want to make a different game per scene, right? Maybe you want this to be like this virtual space invader game where you're shooting like pixelated aliens or something. You can contain that all in that one scene, but then you switch to another scene where maybe like you're making like you want to see like a Minecraft-ish kind of like building or something. I don't know. Maybe you're playing Roblox or something.
There's a bunch of assets you can download, like GarageBand style, as you explained it, in Reality Composer. So you can get started like we did without any like art experience or making 3D assets. You can just start.
The asset library that Apple provides within Reality Composer, which is an app that comes with Xcode, so you can just start there, and they have these really fantastic templates. One for like facial detection, so you can put a 3D object on like a templated face, and then if you write with a little bit of code, you can have like a top hat or something like that pretty quickly. Like a demo of a top hat on your head kind of this situation. It's actually quite cool. I think the setup is a lot easier. So like in Aaron's case, when we talk about such little lines of code, I think traditionally it would be a pain in the, you would have to do a lot of that like setup of like the scenes and like maybe like scene kit. You would create that in like the scene kit library and then bring that in.
Is it because they just took a lot of that and made it declarative in the Reality Kit project? Like it's in the project file, all that kind of information?
Yes. It's I think like when you look at the I think it's like a combination of like JSON, like, and when you look at the actual project, the Reality Kit project, when you have to like save the source code, it kind of saves as like just a glorified JSON.
That's cool. I have a question though. If you wanted to do your own assets for this, how do you actually create a 3D asset for a scene? Like, how would you make your own, orange ball or robot mask or something?
You could use a program called Blender, which is free. Most of the professionals probably would scarf at that, although recently that's changed. But
wait, who said we're professionals?
3D professionals. Let's put it that way. But basically, the traditional tools of choice would be Maya or 3ds Max, something of that nature, but you could use something as simple as basic as a Cheetah or I forget what the
Cheetah?
other like Cheetah. It's a Cheetah 3D. I don't know if it's still around though.
But you can do Blender too now. Were you saying that works?
Yes. Now Blender is free, but it has the same sort of high learning curve that 3ds Max and Maya have, which is like when you open it up, it's like, oh, where like there's so many buttons and toolbars and like it's just a hot mess when it comes to like UI interactions. But ultimately, what you're trying to do, let's say you just make a big sphere and you add like an orange material on top. You're like, okay, I want to export that. You can export that as an OBJ file or some kind of 3D format file that ARKit will accept, and you can import that into a Reality Composer scene directly. I think modern ones these days, particularly you want to do like a format of like a AR friendly format, would be a USD or USDZ file, and those files will play a little bit easier with Reality Composer or SceneKit. It used to be when you worked with SceneKit back in the day, they wouldn't take a format like the popular format for interoperable file format would be something like FBX, which is a Autodesk format, but it's very much like Photoshop file formats, like a PSD file. Like it's a little bit black boxy, and I think a little and USDZ are a little more friendlier for like cross interop from that standpoint.
So what's our next task here? We just with this prototype. We have our orange ball, and I mean, are we gonna proceed with this and try to evolve it into a functional app of some sort, or are we still in the stage of trying to figure out how the heck any of this works? That's kind of where I am still, but Aaron is ahead of the curve though, as usual. MVP.
Actually, Aaron, I might have to borrow some of this code for
already. You're gonna borrow our initial prototype code that Aaron wrote over the weekend.
Just you will get full credit.
Nice. Nice.
But the point being is, well, the thing about this particular project, I think there's still a lot we haven't really. We've only just scratched the bare surface. Like I feel like occlusion mapping, sort of the interactions with the ball. So one of the other things we might try to do is like hot swapping the ball for the box and then adding a gesture to rotate that a little bit, just to play around with gesture manipulation, and also like a flat plane with text, so stuff like that.
Flat plane with text? What do you mean?
Yeah, meaning like a UI GUI of some kind.
Oh, okay.
So that maybe we can do testing gestures of like spinning the plane a little bit, or flipping it away. So it's like I like it's an annoying notification. How do I flip that? How do I like get that off screen, right? And do it in just fun sort of ways. I think we're still. I think this is worth still testing as like a test playground for all of us.
Yeah, well, we have like 3 different things and we can start playing with. Got to figure out occlusion mapping, interaction with 3D objects, and like some kind of UI, concept. So I think that's pretty good. I think if we keep learning the how to do this stuff, it makes sense. And our original app idea goal was kind of just to be able to put something on a real world object. So I think we've got that to kind of work. And then from there, I mean, if we learn how to do like a GUI, we learn how to do the interactions, then you can build an application like as simple as info about a place, for instance, and so that would be a pretty useful thing just to start with too.
Like I think one of the things that it would be kind of interesting to do is create sort of this like to start maybe like a text-based GUI of like it would just kind of come up in screen as you're walking. Make sure it's transparent so you're not knocking into stuff, but then like to be able to take your hand to gesture it away, like okay, I don't need you. Right.
If you're talking about a future version running in some kind of glasses, then definitely you need to be able to like swat it away.
Yeah.
I imagine this horrible world where did you share the video of like, or Aaron shared the video of the worst possible world we could end up in, the worst timeline for this stuff, which was like the video of the guy putting the glasses on and like everything was just covered in AR crap everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cute proof of concept, but holy cow,
was it?
I can't.
Or was it just an animated movie? The guy.
I mean, it was an animated movie, but I mean, as like a proof of concept idea. But it was just like your worst nightmare in terms of like it's like going to the casino and like living that life 24/7. It's like, no, that's a horrible idea.
You'd have to have some kind of filtering mechanism. It's just like, I just want to turn down the world so I don't see everything. I don't need to see all this stuff, or maybe make it all black and white, or just the certain apps that I care about. You'd have to. It's going to be a whole bunch of parental control nightmare scenarios with this stuff in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I personally couldn't see a future where that is useful and the user would actually want to engage with that. I think I think it's better if there's like at least a start, right? A very simple. There has to be a focus context switch. Like you can't always have like if you're driving, for example, just like a key example, or no, just walking, right? You're just walking, and you have the Maps app on, right? Like the only thing the only info the thing should be displaying is okay, like I'm hitting this, I need to make this turn here or whatever, right? I don't want to see all of a sudden like gold coins flashing in me like
So I saw a movie last night. It's an older movie, I think from 2013, 2014, called The Congress, and it's like stars Robin Wright as like a version of herself, and it starts out and it kind of reminded me of this AR stuff because it starts out with her like eventually signing a contract to get her whole self scanned to become a digital actress. So then the digital actress then takes on the roles for the future. But then it jumps like 20 years in the future, and she ends up going to this location to renew her contract, and you have to, in this case, it's all chemical based, not like technology based, but you have to take like a chemical, like sniff it up your nose, and then she enters an animated hotel where you're basically tripping the entire time, and everything, it looks like this animated world. And it reminded me so much of the worst nightmare timeline of AR, because every single thing is whatever you want it to be. Everything is covered. Everything is not what it seems. You can't even tell like what is real, what's not real. There's a scene where she's this whole thing is animated, but she's in her hotel room and it's dark, and she asks the hotel, whatever, is like, are the lights out? Is that really happening, or is it in my head? And they're like, well, everything's in your head. And so if you see it as dark, then you've chosen it for it to be dark. I'm like, oh my God, that's horrible. The idea that we could be in an augmented reality world or a VR world to the extent where we can't tell what's real or not anymore, like that's my nightmare scenario right there. You can't just like turn it off. But it's a good movie, by the way. It's kind of fascinating. At least the first half I like the most. You could see that's going to happen. Though. You know, people are going to try to do that. Like if they can, it's going to be like you'll go to like a nightclub or something. I can imagine a scenario where at least certain places you'll just be wall to wall. Everything will be completely. I mean, that'll be like the ultimate metaverse thing, you know, where either you're in VR like that or you're in AR in a real. I think the AR thing is scarier because in VR, you know, you can't actually touch people. At least you know nowhere. You know, not really, not now. Right? Like I'm sure someone has some kind of like full body suit they're imagining, but like you could go to an actual location with other physical people, and if you have, you know, all your senses covered in some kind of AR devices, your eyes and your ears and stuff, then you can see everything as something else, and to some extent have that kind of tripping. Plus, you add drugs into it, and then you could basically recreate the crazy second half of the Congress movie. I mean, I think that's a nightmare, but I guess some people might think it's fun Friday night.
I feel like it's exhausting. I don't know about you,
It
Aaron.
does seem exhausting.
But I just, like, every time I come out of that, like, a VR session, it's just like, I breathe a sigh of relief of like, okay, I'm back.
But what if you can't tell what's real?
I've yet to use a real VR headset, so I don't know what it's like. My friend had a Virtual Boy back in the day, so that's about it.
I played one of them once. I also had a friend who had a Virtual Boy, and you know what? It actually was kind of neat for the time.
I mean, don't get me wrong. The novelty of VR is fantastic. Like you literally feel like, whoa, I'm like here, but I know I'm not here. It's like really trippy in that sense. But it's also it's just exhausting to be in. Like I can't imagine doing that for like an 8-hour shift of like my life, right? If Mark Zuckerberg was to have his way, you know, it's even this conversation about mixed reality of like having a little blend of both. I could see that, but I also feel like that's a 10-year down the road type of project. Like I always feel like, you know, there is technology. People always talk about how this will change the future or that will change the future. And maybe it does, but it doesn't do it in the form that people expect it to, right? You know, I think we can go down the list of stuff like when tablet PC was just coming up and everybody was saying how this would change the world, but nobody could really understand how or why. They just said it because it was like the cool thing, and they all knew that Apple was like trying to make their own, like the rumors were out there, and it's like, okay, we got to get there first, and we have to, and it's like, well, wait a minute, you haven't even thought about like whether or not it's even practical at this moment, right? Even when the first, you know, like even when we talk about like the first Apple Watch came out, you know, we still sort of struggled of like, I think we were still high on the hype of like Apple making something post Steve Jobs. Like they have to make something to, you know, it's like, no, they should have waited at least a version or two. You know, as the maker of something, right? Like I'm always trying to figure out like, well, how is this how is this actually enhancing my life? Like I could care less, like in many ways about like how other people use the product. Like for me, when I'm trying to build something, it's like what do I need this for, right? And I know that that's not how you should look at it. Like when I hear about new tech, regardless, it's particularly in the world of Web3 world, it's like I still don't like you can like give me all the pie in the sky things. I just don't find the application of it practical or useful for me, right? Like so, like a lot of times it's like, why aren't you on board? It's like I don't, it's like yes, but I've seen bazillions of these ideas and they're all horrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'm a purveyor of horrible ideas. I should know.
Indeed. That's like the whole basis. That was like one of the original bases for doing this podcast. It was like we were at Side Project Saturday and just coming up with like terrible app ideas. Just like put them on a whiteboard. Like which one we would try to one up each other with terrible ideas. And AR would always come up though. AR would always come up as like a terrible app idea. Like the AR Tinder is our famous one from our inside joke there. It's like the worst version of Tinder you can imagine is one that's augmented reality based. You're just looking at people and swiping or whatever.
You would figure out you would see their social graph and then your compatibility score, and you would just swipe left or swipe right. Just gestures like that. It's like, did you just swipe left on me?
Yeah. What? He looks like, no, I was just swatting a fly. It's a fly.
Yeah, it's just a fly.
We should have we could bring back that segment. We could have a segment of like worst app ideas, like worst not a sponsor idea.
Yeah. Well, do we have a non-sponsor? Not a sponsor. I feel like at the moment no, but I have worked on a project called Newly Rent. No, I'm sorry, Newly Thrift. Newly Rent is the other project, which is made by a local company, Urban Outfitters. So shout out to you, Urban. Where I enjoyed working on that project with them. The Newly Thrift is a resale market that comes similar to Facebook, but for clothes. It's available on the App Store. You can download it and try it yourself.
It's what, NUULY, I think.
Yep. Newly.com, and they have a section for thrift. So if you wanna sell your clothes, and create your own sort of marketplace opportunities, do that there. I highly recommend it.
It's pretty cool. I remember downloading the app, but I haven't got to use it yet. But thrift stores are kind of popular around where I live, anyway.
Sure,
probably popular everywhere. Anywhere where someone cares about the stretching their dollar,
Exactly.
Our not a sponsor today is Newly Thrift. That's newly.com/thrift.
That's our non-sponsored sponsor. Non-sponsored sponsor.
Gotta be clear. No one sponsors us.
We're just promoting local app developers. What is next for us in terms of what we want to build? I guess we sort of talked about it to some brief. So action items being research on the occlusion map idea of trying to make sure we can kind of like mask out the 3D object when our hand should be in front of it, the 3D object. The other thing to do is maybe add like a way so that the ball doesn't just pop in. We can kind of like have it bounce in or something. One other thing I would like to see is a way so that if you maybe tap on it or something, you get a GUI UI that comes up that stays flat on screen. So never, like when you rotate around the ball, when you're trying to look around at all the dimensions of the ball.
So it's kind of like it is the screen you're looking through. It's like it's like on that screen.
Right. The other thing is maybe not so much a ball, but like a way to rotate, because it's hard to tell with a ball, but like a way to use gestures to rotate the object. So for us, just like start playing with interactions to figuring out how we can use gestures to interact with the object. So that would be our next task.
Yeah, and I would think the ultimate one of the ultimate goals of that would be to be able to like actually move the marker. Because imagine if you're going to build this, if we ended up building this into an actual app that somebody could use to create whatever tagged environment, whatever we're going to call this, then they need to be able to adjust where the marker exactly is, maybe. Also, there's more than just geolocation you can use, right, for the marker. You can save the scene, right? So it's literally where it physically should be in the scene. And then there's also, I think you can use locations for like beacons. You can use locations for from probably could use like Find My kind of technology. I have no idea. Could you use the location of an Apple tag or whatever they're called? They're called Apple tags.
Oh, I don't know. I haven't really played.
I have no
around
idea
with
if you
that.
can. They're really restricted what you can do. I mean, for good reason, but so I have no idea. But I'm just curious about the other ways. I know iBeacon should be able to work. I remember iBeacons. They were like the big,
Yeah.
Speaking of things, they were like, this is going to change retail in the world, and like,
Oh, jeez.
even Apple, I don't think uses the stupid things anymore that on their apps. I remember going to the mall, and I would just get into the mall, and all of a sudden my phone would like pop up with a notification from the iBeacon, the Apple store, that was like, meters and meters away. But I don't think they do that anymore. So
No. I mean, certainly. I mean, again, it had its heyday opportunity, and it's just never caught on. It's a lot of like, that's the thing about a lot of the stuff that the technology that that gets hyped up early. It's like, like another good example might be like app clips, right? App clips might take off, but it's so niche. Like, it would be really hard unless there was some big splash. Somebody takes advantage of that tech.
the app clips, I think, were really hurt by the pandemic, because when they come out like right before that, or like the year before, or something.
Yeah.
So because I think app clips are still a great idea and concept for real world locations like restaurants and event venues and stores and things where you don't want to have to download an entire app. You just want to be able to quickly get some kind of app like interaction, like look at the menu or look, the catalog, or do whatever. I don't know, whatever. Mostly I'm thinking catalog stuff.
Yeah. Although catalog stuff is kind of tricky because like you would have to have, I guess, the interaction, it has to be super lightweight. You can't give them like search options or filter options or something like that. It's much more ideal, but a little more hard on their side of like saying, okay, here's a QR code. You use app clips to like, or you whatever you to scan your code. You pay for it through Apple Pay. Done. You can walk out the building.
Yeah, if you want to, the purchasing flow is what I think a great thing you're getting with an app clip if you implement it, because otherwise you could literally just have people go to a website from a QR code. Like, why? And then, I mean, you could also do payment there, but of course, and the native experience is so much smoother. And if you want people to buy stuff, you want to make it as frictionless as possible. So I think that's it. Yeah. So I still think there's potential there, but I haven't really seen them in the real world.
Yeah.
But then again, I don't go out much. So kind of a loner.
Same. I actually do agree. I do feel the same way right now. So cool.
Good. I think we had a really excellent conversation today. About AR, about nightmare scenarios.
I thought we were going to be all over the place with all the topics, but I guess we just kept it tightly within AR space, which is pretty awesome.
We did somehow. We somehow stayed on topic. We started out with your excellent intro, and we stayed on the topic of AR, right. And I think made incremental progress in our goals here of building an AR app, and that is really the the raison d'etre of our probably mispronouncing that because I'm terrible at French, but isn't that like the core of our whole podcast idea is make incremental progress?
Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
Good job, guys.
Kaizen.
Look, your whole kitchen is full of orange bouncing balls.